What was your mindset like when you woke up and you discovered that you're paralyzed on the right side and you can't walk or move your arm or your leg?
Well, for me, I was expecting it because it wasn't my hallucination. So because of the autoimmune condition I had spent a lot of time in the medical care system, and I was done. I was actually really done.
Yeah.
I was taking over 20 to 40 pills weekly, different types of medication before the stroke as well, and I was having all these allergic reactions. So for me, I was really, although I'm very grateful for the love and care that the whole medical system has given me over the years, and in a way they're a second family, and it's always been a second family. They did their best in the limitations that they were given. Of their own education and knowledge, and the limits of that as well. And in the same way, I have limitations to what I share.
This is Recovery After Stroke with Bill Gasiamis, helping you go from where you are to where you'd rather be.
This is Bill Gasiamis from recoveryafterstroke.com. And with me today is Delphine Supanya. Delphine became a stroke survivor at the ripe old age of 28 and now works to raise awareness about the risks of working too much in the legal community in Singapore. Welcome, Delphine.
Hi.
It's so lovely to have you on the podcast all the way from Singapore.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. We had a little bit of a chat about a week ago, and I just couldn't believe the similarities that you and I both spoke about and experienced during stroke and now in recovery, and also in the raising awareness space. Before we get into that discussion for the viewers and the listeners, tell me a little bit about what happened to you.
Okay, so April 2016, I had a series of strokes that left me paralyzed on the right side and made me completely change my life. How it came about was a series of different events, including high stress at work, very long work hours, I guess depression from the long work hours, being in a building and outside for a very, very long time, a sick parent, and also I was suffering from an autoimmune condition called fibromyalgia that got worse because of the lifestyle I was leading.
Wow. How does one at 28 years old get caught up into such a dramatic time in their life? Like, how do you get to that point where there's so much going on and you're not aware of it until something goes wrong?
Well, I guess because the main occupation that I had was to not show how ill I was and that I had an autoimmune condition. I'd learned a lot of different meditation techniques and mindfulness techniques based in Buddhism and Vipassana Buddhism especially. And I was using those techniques to master mind over matter. So to find ways to maximize the use of my brain to get 5 different law degrees in 3 countries and practice in 4 countries, and overachieving on all those levels, because I thought, well, if my body is not functioning perfectly, what can I do to have my mind just exceed expectations as best as I could? And so that pushed it in a way where my mind and my body, I understood the power of the mind to override the body, but there was no spirit connection, and there was no purpose and soul, and there was actually no alignment of the 3 main things, which is mind, body, and spirit. And how I got to burn out is just because I was ignoring my body and pushing and pushing and pushing for the sake of overperforming with my mind. I guess also in like the aftermath of the financial crisis and the fact that everybody is working and wanting to achieve their ambitions and wanting to tick all those boxes, we also had the constant pressure of losing our jobs and on the next turnover of the financial crisis, and there was a big understanding that there was another person that would be there to take your job. So you get into this wheel of constantly performing and also being stressed about losing that job. And so working longer hours, wanting to prove more, when actually, hey, if you do take the time for yourself and take care of yourself, you survive in the industry, you don't burn out, and you don't push yourself at all. So, and I'm noticing today that no one actually dies if actually people survive if you take time for yourself, and you yourself do die if you keep pushing. It's not someone else that dies, it's actually you. That's like the main lesson that I learned from this experience. But all in all, I'm really grateful it happened, because I got to completely change my life, discover so many things about how to heal in a non-allopathic way, or combining allopathic medicine and natural medicines, and I'll share those.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The stuff that you share is great. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I want to go back a little bit where you talked about Buddhism. You know, I've been to a couple of Buddhist temples, and they chill you out. You know, you walk in. It's very similar to a lovely cathedral or any other place of worship. You know, you go in there, you feel a little bit chilled out. But I was always of the impression that Buddhism was a little bit more connected to body and to spirit, and it wasn't about using, the Buddhist teachings to overcome the body and the feelings that you were getting from your body, to use your head. How did you get to? Am I right, firstly, and then if I'm right, that it's more of a spiritual type of practice. How did you get to convert it to this practice to overcome the body and use the mind to push through all these challenges that you were having?
Well, in meditation, really, what meditation means is concentration or focus. So, through meditation practices, and there are so many different ones, and I'm going to demystify meditation just now. It is not mind being completely still. It can happen, but it's really not always the state. And sitting and in absolute stillness is also not what meditation is all about. And so it is learning different practices to focus on one thing, have the mind, body, and soul basically focus on one thing. And in our societies, our minds are taught to multitask. We're constantly hearing other things. Some people are on their phones and talking and drinking and eating, and there's something else going on in the background. And then there are people. If you live in a busy city, on top of that, you have constant movement and this overstimulation constantly. And so meditation helps you focus on one of those things, and there are tools to help you just zoom in on one of those things and distract yourself, actually, or detach yourself from everything else that's going on, so that you can just really focus on one thing. And in that, once you practice, it's like a martial art. You start as a white belt, and there's a black belt that's to be reached, and there are different steps and different things that you can learn. And having a still mind with the body, which is an absolute stillness, is what I would say a black belt level. And so my mom is a Vipassana Buddhist, and having been raised partly in Thailand, I got to experience all of these over like 200 meditation practices that include, walking meditation, sound meditation, toning, chanting, active meditations. So things where the body actually moves. Practices like Tai Chi or Qigong are meditation practices, and actually anything you do with concentration is a meditation practice. So part of my daily life and daily self-care practice at the time was to wake up and practice these things so that I would not be my body. And it made me really understand the power of our mind, and what we can create. Up until the stroke, I didn't understand the mind-body-spirit alignment, and it became very, very clear once the stroke happened, which is how I got to reverse all the conditions and heal within 3 months.
Okay. It sounds like the standard, typical journey of most people living in a Western society. And perhaps they haven't gone to the lengths that you have to forget about the body and get out of the body, use the mind to overcome your challenges or weaknesses, for lack of a better word. I'm not sure what the word is. But it's very typical of what we all do. We all find a way to focus on the end goal at almost no matter what cost. And it was certainly my experience. That's what I did. I almost got to that end goal of being successful in business and having an amazing car and a big house and all that kind of stuff. And the journey to get there was at the expense of almost everything else. Time with my family, time enjoying myself, time relaxing, time de-stressing. It was always about making clients happy. It was always about doing things for other people and never once for myself. And I used to feel guilty about doing things for myself until I had a similar experience where one day I woke up and I couldn't go to work anymore. And I had to tell people, in fact, I am physically incapable of getting to your job. I am in hospital, I am sick, and I just cannot get there. Tell me a little bit about the days that led up to your experience with stroke, what was happening for you, and then what happened after that.
Okay, so I was working in London for 5 years, very, very fast-paced. And then I moved back to Singapore where I grew up because my father was suffering from stage 4 cancer. And so I took this other job and started it, and it very much became like the job in London. And I had believed and assumed that it wouldn't be the same and that I would be different. But we fall into our old patterns so easily. And so it was about performing and juggling the family. Psychologically, it was really stressful because I went home to care for my family and be with them, but actually it wasn't so rosy at home, so I didn't really want to go home on most days and made myself stay at work whilst handling my own issues with my own disease that got worse, actually. So my muscles and my nervous system were so tense from the work, the stress, and the lifestyle that my nervous system was constantly on alert. All my muscles would be very tense, and any movement would make them tear. So every time I would lift a finger, move my arm, I would feel the micro tears and be in this incredible amount of pain. So the meditation techniques I was using to master mind over matter, so mind over body, started to stop working. And so I started getting codeine treatments, morphine treatments. Then it got so bad that my psoas tore, which is the biggest muscle in the body. And then I was in a chair, and so for until it recovered. And with muscles, you have to simply wait unless you have a full tear. They will do surgery and sew it back on. But if it's a partial tear, then you just have to wait. It takes time. And so, plus, my work situation wasn't rosy and easy with my supervisor. We had a very conflictual relationship. So I think I was just really fed up, and I sent my body into absolute overdrive. And having had and overcome a lot of burnouts in the 5 years prior, and thinking, oh, well, it's just one I'll recover from, because really that's what the kind of thinking we go into. Once you've recovered from one, you think, oh, well, it didn't kill me, so I can overcome the next one. But at some point, actually, there is a physical limit to what your body can actually take. And so I wanted to resign, and then got to go on unpaid medical leave. And 2 weeks after I resigned, the strokes, well, I went to hospital and was admitted because I was having strokes. I've learned since that actually there are symptoms, they start way earlier, and I didn't recognize them at the time. But that day really I felt, well, something is extremely wrong. I should go back to hospital. And I was admitted. I don't really remember the time. I only remember a very long vision, dream, or hallucination, and waking up paralyzed.
Tell me about the hallucination.
So I got to experience what I today call unattached association. So I met other parts of me, including my mind, my body, my spirit, and other archetypes, or what psychology calls archetypes of me, in like a round table setting. And we discussed and talked a lot about why it was worth keeping on living, because I, at the time, was done. Like I remember being whatever I consciousness is here right now, talking, being like, I want to die. This is not worth continuing. And the other parts of me explaining to me why I shouldn't die, I should stay alive, why actually it's a privilege to be alive, how we are all gifts as human beings, that are here to share something with the world, our own gifts, not someone else's, not a copy of someone else. It was really our own authentic gifts. And they showed me everything I needed to do to recover from the paralysis that I was going to get, and to reverse my autoimmune condition. And so, it was a strenuous and arduous journey, because it's like an inner negotiation, really, talking to all of these other faces that look like me.
Beautiful.
And then I woke up and I was paralyzed completely on the right side. I had no mobility in my hand, my face, my legs. And I started applying them, and I said to myself, well, you know what, if this works, I'll spend the rest of my life fine-tuning it and sharing it. And here I am.
Such a great thing that you're here to share it. That's a really interesting vision or hallucination that you had. You know, I have similar discussions with other people who've experienced something similar. They call it either out of body or something else going on, something bigger than us, or maybe something within us. And no one's been really able to, pinpoint what it was. It's always very similar kind of feeling, but different, unique experiences, because we're all unique. So imagine we all have little unique versions of that. I didn't experience anything like that, but isn't it amazing how your body can still, in the midst of despair and the most deepest, darkest place, still send you messages of hope, of overcoming, of moving forward. And I think the body does tend to send us those messages before we get into that spot where we're really struggling with life and potentially going to check out of it. And this is the amazing thing about the work that you're doing now, because I think you're sort of working at that point where we're trying to engage people to receive those messages beforehand. Is that correct in what I'm saying? Is that kind of the space that you're interested in working in?
Yes, and actually our body is alive all the time. Even now as we're talking, energy is spent for our hearts to beat and pump our blood and oxygens and nutrients through our bodies, and we don't even realize that we're breathing and the heart is beating. And so the body's natural state is to be alive, and we are alive, but our mind seems to have forgotten. And whilst we're getting so busy doing other things, our mind forgets about everything that is beautiful, and life becomes shades of gray instead of being colorful. And so, yes, most of the work I'm doing now is in big cities with professionals in the financial and legal world, and very, very busy environments. And we explore and reignite that aliveness within through what I call inner voyage integration, which is basically a meditation that teaches you to access your subconscious mind and feel the alignment of mind, body, and soul, and starting that conversation with these parts of you and reestablish communication pathways with all of these different parts of yourself, so that actually when there's something that you should not be doing, even when you're really healthy, and then you know how to listen to the messages that are coming through all the time, actually. But it's in my work, it's more of a physical. It's like we reconnect to the body. So it's like, if I have an example, I go to a place and all of a sudden my stomach, has this like, oh, it's like, oh, I'm in pain and I shouldn't be going. I was like, oh well, my body is trying to prevent me from going to this place and meet this specific person. It has reasons maybe that I don't understand with my mind. There are techniques to understand. I find sometimes it's not even worth trying to understand, but just trusting that our body knows best, and it's really here to live and to want to be alive. So anything that we do and is not in line with our body will send us a message, and it will send subtle messages, and after a while it will start sending stronger messages, and those strong messages are sickness, our pains, cramps, indigestion, and then they will start being called. And then they'll start, if you stay in a situation which your body does not want you to stay in because it's not aligned with body and usually soul, you will start getting very sick. And then you'll go to hospitals, do all these tests, and they'll come back normal. And then you will be diagnosed with some sort of autoimmune condition. But you're still staying in in this environment with all of these factors that make your body stress, and it just means you shouldn't be there. So the work that I'm doing now is to help people learn these pathways again, how to listen, so that actually they know and reconnect with this natural intelligence. Because when you do connect with the natural intelligence, your body will tell you how to get out of it, how to heal from it, and what to do next, which is extremely interesting.
There's a beautiful book that I've read called M-Braining, Using Your Multiple Brains to Do Cool Stuff. And what it explores what science is discussing now and talking about now more specifically, in that we have an intelligence in our gut, and that intelligence is made up of neurons. It is where serotonin is created, is where all the things that we require to keep our brain healthy occur. And when I discovered the gut brain, as it's been referred to these days, I also understood that accessing the gut brain and that information, that you get that gut feeling and that the knots in the stomach and all that type of responses are actually that information and not to be ignored. And the conversation in the book M-Braining leads to a discussion about also the intelligence of the heart and the fact that the heart also has neurons. And then there's other books called The Little Brain in the Heart, where if we pay attention to I followed my heart, or I wear my heart on my sleeve, or I have a broken heart because of a relationship that didn't work out. If we pay attention to the words that we use, we're often referring to those intelligences, that part of the body that you're talking about, and we're just not aware that we are actually accessing those intelligences when we use those words to actually represent what we're feeling internally. We're actually representing it externally by saying words like, my heart hurt, or my gut felt tight, or I had butterflies in my stomach. So what you're saying is beautiful, and for people who are unaware of potentially what the unconscious mind is, perhaps it's those intelligences giving us feedback and telling us things that we want to know. And then we talk about the body responding and giving us feedback. If we know how to listen, if we know how to pay attention, we get a lot of wisdom from the body without the brain ever having to get involved. I'm sorry I cut you off a little bit earlier.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to add that it may seem and sound like something that's difficult to learn, but actually us as babies do this already. We try and feed a child or a newborn something that the body does not want. The child or the infant will refuse to swallow it, and it only comes later when we are more aware of our surroundings and of social conditionings, and should I do this to please someone? It only comes up to a later stage, but then beforehand we all have this within us, this natural instinct of I don't want this, or you're trying to make a baby go somewhere or do something and it does not want it, will throw a tantrum. But we've forgotten this, and I'm not saying we should throw tantrums again, but there's a way to feel, because the body will give a feedback of that tantrum, and it is actually subtle, but the more we fine tune our mind to focus and to be receptive to those messages, the louder they become actually. And it doesn't take that long to learn. That's the beautiful thing, because it's so natural.
Yeah. And for people who are skeptical, all they need to do is just close their eyes for a moment and just go in and just connect with somebody they love and see where they feel that. So just go in, think about somebody they love and see where they notice it in their body. And then just connect to something that's a little bit scary, like, public speaking for some people, and just see where they notice that in the body. If they were asked to get up and be a public speaker, just see where they notice it. And then they've already connected with those different parts of the body. And there goes, now you can start expanding that lesson that I've just, shared, and you can take it to the next level with some amazing stuff that, that you're doing. What's it like to go to the legal community and talk about these types of things? That seems like a really interesting conversation.
So it's interesting because especially the legal community has been investing more and more money in doing death prevention work, or what I call death prevention, because the suicide rate, the stroke rate, and the heart attack rate for people or lawyers in the 50s is just rising every year. And so it's really something that is not being talked about openly yet, but as in between ourselves and amongst ourselves quite a lot. And so it's really interesting to have this conversation, because I was there not like 3 years ago. I was still there. So in April it will be 3 years. Less than 3 years ago I was still there. And so it's like, oh yeah, well, actually you're one of us, and you're still here, and you've made it. I changed my life. A lot of other lawyers have completely changed their lives, but I actually believe that you don't need to leave the work environment if the work environment changes. And so the efforts that we're working with now with the legal society in Singapore, the law society, in Singapore, and other startups that are creating innovative solutions for law firms are now including emotional health and mental health. And it's really, really important. And so if you open the conversation and saying, well, you're at the wrong place and you should quit, people just stop listening, because, we have mortgages, we have families, we have ambitions that, we want to achieve.
Want to be the best lawyer ever.
Yes, exactly. And so, and there's a lot of things and milestones that we want to reach, whether they're justified or not, conditioned or not. It doesn't matter. We want that. So now because I'm going in and saying, well, listen, these are small things that you can do and add to the daily life of a lawyer, knowing exactly what it entails, as I haven't been there a few years ago, to change the culture, to create more awareness, to create more movement, and less stagnation, really. Because if you think about it, our heart pumps blood throughout our system the whole day. So it distributes energy. However, if we're sitting all day, the neurological messages that go to certain parts of our body get interrupted or suspended, because all of the energy is needed here and not to move our bodies. So that creates imbalances, and actually it stops the flow of this beautiful circuit. And so there are ways that are very easy, that take less than 5 minutes, that people can use at their desks without really, changing very much. And that changes the brain chemistry, rebalances left and right brain, and re-engages this flow. So slowly, we're reintroducing this, and we're seeing that after 3 weeks, everybody feels different. After 6 months, the whole place, everybody is different, because also every 36 weeks, all of our cells are completely different from 36 weeks ago. So this new information, we're like a new human. It's just that the mind thinks that things can't change, but actually that's not true, because we are a constantly ever-changing organism. And so it's about reconnecting the people with that. And when you approach it in this way, people are actually very open and receptive to listening. And as it's experience-based, the mind seems to accept hormone changes, mood changes, things it can feel or experience without needing too much explanation. Some personalities need science backup and all, and we provide that. And it exists, it's all out there. So we provide it on a separate portal, but we don't really talk about it then, because that will be feeding the mind again, where we're trying to, what we're wanting to achieve is to reconnect mind, body, and the soul come out then. But there's no need to change your life anymore. And that's really I'm striving to offer to the world, is like, hey, you can rebalance in the current conditions. And then if in those current conditions you find your balance again and you still don't want to be there, then okay, then make a choice. But there is no need to quit to find solutions, or to quit and dabble and look, because that's very stressful.
Yeah, you don't need to change your identity, and you don't need to stop paying your bills. You don't need to stop meeting your obligations. You just need to give yourself some time. And there's some work done by a group in America called HeartMath, and they talk about how meditation, can 10 minutes or 5 minutes of meditation can have long-lasting effects throughout the day, and doing multiple breathing exercises and what they call coherence exercises, you can actually have a long-lasting effect for the entire day. And then that helps you sleep better, and then that helps you wake up better, and it helps you go to work without screaming at so many drivers. It helps you get to work a little bit calmer. And then, when the first phone call comes in that's a little bit crazy and you don't want to answer it, you deal with it a little better, and everything helps to just take the edge off, rather than turn up all of the stresses and all of the aggravation. It just helps to take the edge off. So what you're doing is really amazing, and if lawyers can do it, anyone can do it.
Oh yes, yes, and then also it's so easy, because then you get to understand that you have the power to balance your mood on your own, and it's really like a radio button that you turn, and you just shift. And yes, we get stressed. It's human, and we experience all ranges of emotion during the day. So it's about becoming aware of it, and then having the tools to just go to wherever you are most comfortable. And it's different every single day, and that's really important as well. As every single day we're different, so every single day will feel different. And in that sense, I'm finding that using the same meditation technique every day may not be the most useful. So it's about providing a toolbox. Toolboxes are huge. Sometimes they have different levels, but intuitive toolboxes that are very natural to apply. And again, a lot of the things that I share now, I was doing, and then I got confirmation when I was observing newborns and what they were doing to self-regulate themselves, because they're still very connected to their natural intelligence. And so it's really a journey of remembering more than anything else, and then it becomes natural and life change.
Yeah, I love that you said you're working in the cities. There's probably people in the country that need this type of work, or in the rural communities as well. But I love that you're saying working in the cities, because the people in the cities are, I would say, the most removed from the natural way and the natural cycles of life. And we are removed from that simply because we are living in concrete towers with not a lot of trees around us, constant noise. Noise I have in the background at my house where I'm currently living, and that's something I'm going to remedy because it's on a main road. It's constant noise, you can't escape it. We have air that's not the best, and we have so much commuting time between home, getting to work, and then coming home. We don't have enough time to grow our own food and sustain ourselves in a more natural way. So we buy food from convenient locations and packaged in convenient ways, and not necessarily grown with the most amazing soil or anything like that. So the city folk are living in the city, at least for me. Like I talk about it as if like I was living in the city because that's where the work is, that's where more money is, and all that type of thing. but it's also where more illnesses and more diseases and less, wellness overall. And if we can find a way to help people in that space, it's great, because I needed that, but I didn't know that I needed that until it was too late. And I'm lucky I got away with it, and you and I, we're both lucky because we're still here talking. Some people only have one shot at it and they don't get away with it. So this can be applied. What's beautiful about what you're saying is that it doesn't matter who's listening, whether they're a lawyer or an accountant or a painter or whatever they are. This can be applied in any field and in any industry. And I don't think it takes a lot to start to impact people in a positive way. But how did you find that it was received when you went with this idea to your legal colleagues? Because some people are going to be thinking, I can't do this. I can't go to the accountant fraternity and tell them about this and try to implement this in their world. How did you go about it? What was
for me? I'm someone who's very direct and blunt. Maybe the French in me, or so I went and I said, well, I disappeared. I didn't say at the time is I had strokes. I completely changed my life. Look at me now. And because they've seen me, they're seeing the difference. And then I don't milk it. I'm like, well, you know what? People are dying, and So I spent the last almost 3 years developing solutions to that problem. And because I just hit the button and I address the problem exactly how it is, and I say exactly how it is. And nothing else is out there at the moment. So people are listening because there is a real need. And so I don't know if it's a strategy, but it's the one that works for me. I go in, I tell what happened to me, and then I'm like, well, look, I've got this solution. Are you willing to try? And most of them said yes. However, I find that I am exposed to people who are already open to it, because otherwise they wouldn't meet me. Right. So I haven't gone to anybody who is skeptical or thinks that this is all not possible or can't work. However, I'm finding that people are, especially in the big cities and in the finance sector, people are very aware of emotional health and being something that needs to be addressed. People have anxiety. There's a lot more absenteeism, more burnouts, and those are bad for business. Really bad for business.
Yeah, because your assets, which are your employees, they've spent so much time training and they have so much knowledge, go offline or they die or they never come back.
Yes, and so there's a real need actually for retention. And there are a lot of leadership trainings and already a la carte yoga and meditation that are included in companies. Like Google has its own complete program where they train people in a more holistic way. What I've been saying is I don't offer a la carte. I offer comprehensive holistic programs, because to tackle an issue that is as important and as big as emotional health, because unhealthy emotional self makes an unhealthy body, right? And the body just reflects the emotional state. And in that sense, there is a real urgency. And for people who have budgets, they're very open to the programs, as this has never been done before. And for people who have less budgets, then I happily refer them to a la carte things that they have a budget for. But the more we create awareness about what exists, the more inside the organizations they seem to be preparing as well. So wellness budgets in Fortune 500 companies have doubled from last year to this year, for instance. Or this is what I have seen anyway. Mm-hmm. And so there is scope for it. It's just, I guess, you'll find the company that will be listening to what you have to offer, and other people out there like us offering these solutions, and they will target the companies that they're supposed to target, and in that sense, like that there is a lot of scope.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm not sure about how big it is in Singapore and in the UK. I imagine it's a serious issue, but occupational health and safety is very big in Australia. And what I find really interesting is that if my employer was to give me a ladder that had a broken leg and that ladder broke, and I fell off the ladder and hurt myself, that they would be able to be sued. They would be able to be held responsible for my injury and my loss of income, etc. But employers are also directly responsible for having people at work for 15, 12, 16 hours a day and working them right through until they fall over and die. Have you heard of, especially in the legal field, have you heard of any actions that have been taken against employers that have done this to their employees where they've overworked them?
So it's really interesting because you're asking this question to a lawyer, and we are the least litigious people, although we are lawyers, when it comes to our personal well-being, actually, because it's all about proving damage and causation between, like A happened and B happened, and so C happened, and I'm directly affected because, hey, this all concerns me. And actually, Singapore does not have a very protective employee laws. So there is actually nothing. As far as I'm aware, I have to check again, but if you get a medical certificate from a doctor, then yeah, you cannot come to work. But if you have too many, where you come back and there's no medical certificate, you can be let go because you haven't been to work a lot. Even if you work for companies that come from countries with very, very strong employee protection laws like Australia or France or the EU, usually, not the UK, less. But Singapore doesn't really have that. And no one is suing because it is very difficult to prove that the employer is the sole cause responsible for your stroke. Because even in my case, I hadn't thought about it. Actually, now that you're asking if I do the rationale, I had an autoimmune condition. I had difficult family life. There were so many other things that came in, and you can't just be like, okay, well, my employer caused this. But then also, if you're wanting alimony or damages or money, well, you need to quantify, how much you've lost, and then you need to prove it. And so it's very long. I wouldn't go into it because it would cost me money to pay lawyers, to pay for court fees, and it would take a lot of time, and it's a lot of effort and energy to try and make something right where you're actually coming at it from a place of pain and hurt. And so, which is why I'm offering these solutions. I'm like, okay, well, let's go at it from a place of, well, there is a solution. I can get better. Like you and I have had strokes, and we're not paralyzed anymore, And yes, there are some other things that I haven't still worked on. My top and bottom coordination is still a bit challenged, but it's mainly because I haven't focused on it. If I do, it will come back. Like nothing is permanent.
Yeah.
At all. Like
for us, it's not. I know for a lot of other people, paralyzed on the left side, it's permanent because of the amount of damage that they've experienced. For some people, their speech, is eventually not permanently, but for a very long time affected. But I have had people that I've interviewed that have told me that they regained the use of their arm 20 years after their stroke when they were a child. So that offers hope. And one of the people that I interviewed a little earlier in the podcast series, Dr. Michael Merzenich, says that you can regain everything back. It just depends on how much time you've got. So, if you have a stroke when you're very young, you've got a lot more time ahead of you to recover the deficits that have been created. And then, unfortunately, for people who are longer, older in age, in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, that unfortunately that time frame decreases, and the ability for the body to heal quicker decreases. So we have this challenge that it's kind of really sad, but the earlier you have a stroke, the better. I don't know, that sounds weird, saying that sounds so weird, but it's kind of true, Tell me about some of the other things that you can assist people with to help them potentially divert from a stroke or avoid a stroke. Now, we're talking about going in and you're talking about meditation and making them feel better in their body. What are some of the other tools that we can give people and that we can teach them about, how to support the body holistically to overcome ill health?
So yeah, holistic means holistic. So it's a full 360 approach, not just one angle. So for a healthy body, you actually need a healthy body. So movement's really key. More and more, there are studies that are coming out confirming that the human body is not designed to sit all day and be on a computer and on phones and people are hunched. We are not designed to be hunched physically, and so to go out, to go for walks, to move, and it's really about moving the energy within the body, letting the blood circulate everywhere, so that actually the more you practice this, and in martial arts or qigong or tai chi, we call cultivating qi. What does that mean? It just really means having all the energy circulate, so that if your circulatory system is a river, there are no dams that are created by, emotions or even foods that you eat, and it's constantly pushing through and flowing. And in that sense, all your organs are oxygenated and you're working at optimum energy level. The other way to optimize energy level and flow is diet. Can't talk about this enough, actually. Food is medicine, but because food can be medicine, food can also be what kills you. And a lot of us are eating our death in our plates because, and so think about what you're eating, where it comes from, what it's been through, and because of what it's been through, if you're eating it, it becomes you for 36 weeks because it gives you energy and it becomes your system. Even if it only takes so long to digest, actually all the enzymes, the proteins, the vitamins, the minerals that you're taking from it stays with you. So think about, the origin of the food and what it's been through. And if it's an animal, has it been through, look at its life and see if you want that sort of thing within you. And especially, yes, a balanced diet is really key to balance out all of the elements. And nature is beautiful because it's providing all of this beautiful, beautiful, colorful things to us to feed us and to give us energy. I'm finding also intermittent fasting and detoxes to be very, very, very efficient to kickstart the body's natural cycles that we've forgotten or we haven't used in a while, to really optimize nutrient intake and energy intake from food. Because most of us eat and actually feel tired after eating and need coffee. It's actually not how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to eat and feel great. So look into food. There are amazing people out there that are doing such amazing jobs in creating awareness. I particularly enjoy Dr. Morse, Morse, and he's all about iridiology and plant-based diets to heal and cure anything really. And it's been a really big part of my journey because I've been a vegan for most of my life, and I don't say that it works for everybody, but for me it works specifically well, and we're seeing more and more that in order to cure and detox the body, it's actually the fastest way. And then yes, meditation would be the third one, and also have fun. It's so important to laugh and have fun. I'm a big advocate of smiling meditation, so I hold smiles, like really big smiles where the corners of my mouth try and touch my ears, and my eyes try and touch the crown of my head. I hold it, I breathe in through my mouth and out through the back of my throat. And I do this every day for 3 to 4 minutes, and I just hold it. And just doing that, we have tiny receptors in our cheeks that are actually connected to our brain, our gut, and our heart, and send dopamine, serotonin, and create all of these chemical reactions for happiness. And it's the physical positive reinforcement system. You know how we try and train dogs and we give them treats to behave certain ways. Actually, this is our way to entrain ourselves, is by smiling. So do something, think about something positive, and then hold that smile for a while. And you'll see the more you smile, the more your face will start to look like a constant smiley face.
Yeah, beautiful. In coaching sessions, when we get through something serious and then we have a smile or crack a smile with one of the clients, what you notice the wrinkles go away, you notice the tension go away, you notice everything change. You know, the shoulders change, you know, the way they're holding their body, the way they're breathing, everything changes. And often it starts from, you know, going in and exploring something and then getting to the other side of it and then allowing themselves to smile again. And I often say to people who are depressed, or, you know, say they're depressed because they are doing depressing things, they are doing depressing, you know, they're having depressing experiences. I often say to them, smile and see if you can be depressed when you're smiling. And it's impossible to feel depressed when you're smiling, even if it's a fake smile.
Yes, because your body will produce the chemicals that go with the smile, which is great, happy.
Yeah, and it changes the whole chemical balance of the body, and it changes every muscle fiber, and it changes all the cells. It does amazing differences to the body, and this is such a simple tool, you know. And if you're sitting at your desk and you can hide the computer from somebody, your employer, and you can put on a YouTube comedy sketch or something, jump onto YouTube and listen to something, put your headphones on so nobody else can hear it, and do yourself a 5-minute opportunity to smile. It costs nobody anything, and it makes you feel better. And, you know,
yes,
it has long-lasting effects.
Yes, and there's so many ways. The most amazing breathing technique as well. There's so many now, but is alternative nostril breathing. So it's closing one nostril, putting one finger here, inhaling through this left nostril, exhaling through the right, inhaling through the right, closing it, and then exhaling through the left, and just keep going with this. And you do this for 3 minutes, and it actually rebalances oxygenation within your body, and it's just so simple.
And if somebody says you do that, you look so funny, they'll start laughing and you'll start laughing.
Yes, and then it creates a smile. But what I'm seeing in offices now is we're introducing these small techniques, and then actually when one person at the desk does it, it prompts the other one to do it too. So they're doing a break that takes less than 5 minutes, and that will then increase productivity, creativity, and aliveness, really, and wanting to be there. And so it's like lots of small things, and yes, do things that make you happy, you know, because there's one thing really that I realized is if I don't take care of myself, no one else will. And we're constantly looking for solutions outside. And when everything is within us, and these practices, they're also natural and they come naturally to us, and then they won't require any effort. What I must say also is, and I've observed, is when people go to allopathic doctors, we get chemicals. Those chemicals' main attribute is to cut the messaging between your brain and the rest of your body of what is actually going on. So yes, you will feel numbed, not better, numbed. So the message, the alert message that your body is sending, it's like a red bulb that's is blinking. This bulb will still be blinking, but you won't be aware of the fact that it'll be blinking. So actually, it is a band-aid solution that treats something very instantly, but it's not treating the root cause. And I'm finding that root causes are emotional health. So take care of your emotional being, and everything else from then transpires into the body. Even if it takes a while for the body to come up, it's the last thing to catch up with the new information. But it's quick. It takes 6 months, but even less, because emotionally and chemically, you start feeling so differently. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And what you're saying is that, and by not dealing with the root cause, what we're doing is we're compounding the problem and we're making it worse and worse. So when it actually eventually catches up with us, it's usually a very dramatic response that occurs. And for you and me, the dramatic response was, for me, it was a bleed in the brain. What type of stroke did you experience?
I had TIAs.
Yeah. So due to just blockages or due to something not working correctly or the blood not flowing correctly, were you able to understand?
No, they couldn't really determine because of all of the other issues that I was having prior, like the muscle tears, the fibromyalgia, the medication I was on at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was undetermined for me.
Yeah. So your mindset was very different before, and it's very different now. We see this almost polar opposite mindsets, and it's amazing how the shift has occurred in such a small amount of time. What was it like for you during rehab? When I was in rehab, I had 3 years before I ended up in rehab to do the work that you're saying. So I was preparing myself for potentially a bigger stroke to come, or I was preparing myself for surgery. So I had my body in a very good state, and I had my mind in a very good space, and I had a lot of emotional work that I had done through being coached myself and through telling people that I loved them and hugging my kids more and apologizing more and doing all that type of stuff. So I was very focused already when I got to rehab about how to impact my body in a positive way, how to be the main person who was responsible for my recovery, as well as the amazing doctors, but how I took the responsibility of when I go home, the doctors can't be there with me. I'm going to do the stuff that I do and get better. What was your mindset like when you woke up and you discovered that you're paralyzed on the right side and you can't walk or move your arm or your leg?
Well, for me, I was expecting it because it wasn't my hallucination. Because of the autoimmune condition I had spent a lot of time in the medical care system, and I was done. I was actually really done. I was taking over 20 to 40 pills weekly, different types of medication before the stroke as well, and I was having all these allergic reactions. So for me, I was really, although I'm very grateful for the love and care that the whole medical system has given me over the years, and in a way they're a second family, and they've always been a second family. They did their best in the limitations that they were given. Of their own education and knowledge, and the limits of that as well. And in the same way, I have limitations to what I share. We all do. And so for me, it was really, I'm done, and I'm going to apply what I received in the vision. And so I did a 360 change, and something that was very clear to me at the time was I could not have anybody else have an opinion or affect the implementation of that plan. So I isolated myself. I told my parents that it wasn't that bad. I told my partner at the time that it wasn't that bad and that I didn't need anyone. So I did the breathing exercises, the visualizations. And for me, it was really imagining. I could feel my left side a lot and not my right. So I was imagining everything I felt on the left side happening on the right, and reestablishing brain connections from the day I went out. And my ex and I had a video business, and one of the videos we did was for a startup called Mind Maze that is developing technology with VR, like a virtual reality mask for stroke patients after strokes, to basically have them move the functioning arm, but seeing the other arm move, so that actually the brain reestablishes the connections through the imagination. And it's exactly what I did before meeting the startup, which is not cool. The startup is not a startup anymore. Actually, it's huge now. And so I used that, and very, very quickly, 2 weeks, I could feel my body again because I had no nerve damage. And then I started to be able to feel, and I was like, okay, I'll just keep going, just keep going. But for me, it was really important that I didn't have anyone outside, which is caring family members, friends, and hospital care systems, that were doubting what I was doing, and because of love and care for me, would suggest things that they thought would work for me when I knew exactly what I needed to do. So my way was a bit unconventional because I isolated myself. And then 3 months later, I was doing yoga. I had never done yoga in my life. And then I started surfing. I had never done any of these things because of the fibromyalgia. Mm-hmm. So yes, for me, it was, I'm very strong-minded. I've always been. Perhaps my life living with an autoimmune condition that was limiting me physically taught me that. And a very big sense of pride that I didn't lose also helped.
Yeah.
But I wasn't afraid to tap into that. And I guess the vision really helped because I was like, well, I'm alive now, so I'm going to live. And that's really something when I've been working one-on-one in the past 2 years with people who've suffered similar things or have had autoimmune conditions or any other, even genetic conditions, is the question I ask is, how much do you want to live? And if you want to live, what kind of life do you want to live? If you want to settle with what you have right now, I can only respect it. But hey, I didn't, and a lot of other people didn't, and look what happens. And so it's really about finding that strength and that hunger, because everything really is possible. We're not the only people who've recovered so well. There's people around the world now writing books, sharing their gifts, showing that actually, hey, it's not the end of the world. Everything is possible, and we can really jump back from absolutely anything. Even I would even say, even if you're older, if you want to live, if you want to heal, you will, because that's the first step.
Yeah, it's so true. That is a beautiful way to get to the end of this podcast. Really, I was really amazed by such wisdom in such a young person. I think we're all wise, and we're just afraid to tap into our own unique wisdom. I was pretty dumb at 28, and then even at 31 or 35, I was pretty dumb. The wisdom started to ooze out of me at 37 after the first bleed, and then at 40 after surgery. And by wisdom, don't get me wrong, people listening and people watching, I'm not a philosopher or anyone like that. I'm just somebody who knows to tap into the places where feedback is really guiding me to live the best version of my life. And I'm listening to that feedback from the parts of me that I was ignoring before. And it sounds like you're doing the same thing. And I'm so glad that you get to share it in this space, that you're, A, came on my podcast, and B, that you're working in the legal field, because if there's any industry that needs it, it is definitely the legal space. I've never met a lawyer who's chilled out and calm and relaxed and not argumentative and all those types of things. So I just love the work that you're doing, and I'm wondering, where can people find out a little bit more about you? I want to look you up.
So at the moment, I'm working with an organization in Singapore called Sage House. Their website is sagehouse.sg, and I have a profile page on that. And very soon, our wellness programs are called Well to Work, and we're still building that. So the website for that is welltowork.org. So stay tuned. It'll be released in the next few weeks. Otherwise, social media, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. So there, and I'm really happy to meet new people and share. So
yeah, and congratulations, Delphine, because before we spoke, I knew you were a little bit apprehensive. You hadn't yet told too many people about the things that you're doing, and I feel very blessed and privileged that you came to my podcast, one of the first places that you're starting to open up and share, your beautiful gift of making it better for people on the planet, and making people feel better and want to be better and experience a better version of life. We've only got one. So I wish you all the best, and I'll follow your work with great curiosity.
Thank you so much for having me, and for having this podcast and website, and for sharing and spreading the messages as well. It's great.
Discover how to support your recovery after stroke. go to recoveryafterstroke.com.